Okay, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. Thanks so much for joining us again on YouTube. We are going to actually have a great time. We're going to work on this painting. We have our photograph on cam. So the whole time we're working, we'll have our photograph on camera. We'll do the sketch. We'll cover everything. We have a workaround. If you're not really, maybe you're still working on your drawing skills and you might not want to take on the challenge of trying to draw something three-dimensional. We have some angles here, a little bit challenging, but I know many of you can do this and tackle this. Some of you might still be learning with perspective and working with three-dimensional objects and things like that. So no worries. This is a beautiful Bavarian church here in the mountains in Bavaria. We have the Swiss Alps behind us. So this is a really incredibly fun painting to do. And I'll also explain a workaround in the beginning of the video. We're going to cover how you can take this scene and just spin it a little bit to make it a little easier to draw, and then you can start getting right into the painting portion, because we're doing a lot of painting in this, so you'll have a lot of fun painting this, so you don't have to worry if you might not want to deal with too many angles and things like that. I often create paintings with less angles just to make it easier for myself, so I struggle with perspective and drawing sometimes myself too, so no worries about that. And let's get started. Again, we'll have the photograph on cam. We're going to use really mostly just one brush. We'll do mostly all the painting with just this one small travel brush. It's a Da Vinci number 4 round brush. And then we also use a Skoda round brush too for the larger areas. So we're using a larger brush for some of the sky washes and some of the areas of larger washes where the grass are and trees and things. But for the most part, pretty simple tools: mechanical pencil, number 4 round brush, and then this a little bit we'll use the larger Skoda round sable brush. So beautiful painting. You can also this is actually an 11 by 14 frame. We have a pre-cut mat here. The window opening is 7.5 by 9.5. So you can kind of see how that looks framed out. That. So I think that looks really nice. So if you get this painting done and you think it's really looking good, you can buy yourself a pre-cut mat, put it right over the top, and we're all set. And we'll leave it like that for now. And I'm excited about this one. Really came out good from my perspective. I got the light really good, the good sunlight coming across the scene. I'll explain how you use the sunlight effect going across the scene, and then the shadowing on the sides of the building where you need to. Everything works out good, and kind of a simple approach to doing that. So I'll cover everything here and we'll get started in just a second. All right, so we just saw the finished painting. And this is really just an enjoyable process to get to the finished painting. And everything is methodical. We kind of do the same thing over and over. And here on my channel, I'm glad you're here. If you're just stopped by for the first time, welcome. Thanks for coming by. Everyone that's usually, in the comments section on my channel here on YouTube, everyone has great comments, very kind and considerate, and a lot of people have very good insights into watercolor and different things they like to try, sometimes creative ideas that maybe we didn't cover here on the channel. So there's lots of great information in the comment section. I didn't mention that in the beginning of the video just now, but just always remember that. You have great comments in the comment section that you can learn from. A lot of great artists here that are painting along with us. So hope everyone will take advantage of that. Leave some questions if you have to. If I don't answer some questions, people usually will go in and kind of talk about what their experiences are with watercolor, and how they do things and so forth. We're all a little different when it comes to watercolor artists. We have our own kind of methods and techniques that we like to use, and Most people that are on my channel, I think, like to paint the same way I do, which is kind of, using either the glazing method or the alla prima method. We're going to do the alla prima method here again, and just to mention that, because the more I mention things, the more you'll just remember them. So if you keep hearing me mention terms and things over and over again, it's just so that we all kind of get used to them. Some people are just starting, so they need to hear the terms and all of the things that we, terminology, the methods that we use, all the different vernacular, the words, terms, so forth. So I guess the newer people coming along, they need to hear it. And if you've been here for a while, don't worry about it. It'll just be really rock solid when you hear those things. You'll just already know that, and it's almost like you won't even hear it. So let's get started. So I think a ruler would be really good here for this. Before we start with the drawing, let's just make one kind of consideration here. We have this paper, and we want to make sure that, if at all possible, let's try to make sure that this paper will fit in a standard pre-cut mat. This is an 11 by 14 frame size mat, and the window opening is 7.5 by 9.5. And if you kind of can see, I'll put this over here just one more time. So the frame size is 11 by 14, and the mat opening is 7.5 by 9.5. So my paper is probably about an 8 by 10, I think, because it's plenty. You can see it's plenty large enough, the paper, and then we'll have room to move around once we're done. So if we're going to frame this after we're done, if it turns out really good, we'll do that. We'll frame it. We'll put a mat on it like this, and then we'll put it into a frame. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is I'll just make a border around with my mechanical pencil, a border around and I think, yes, we can see this on the camera fine. Like that. So that's the border we have to work with. That's our rectangle, our frame, our picture frame, our space that we're going to work in. And then we're going to take our phone, and I'll put it on an angle so we can kind of see it a little better. Okay, so I have that on a little bit of an angle, tipping this way so we can see it better. And what we'll do is we'll start out, of course, with the main structure. It's a church in Germany, in Bavaria, next to the Alps. So it's kind of a really beautiful church, lots of interesting shapes, conical roof, a cone-shaped roof. And we have a ball on the top here, and the spire, the conical spire. Beautiful architecture. And then you have all the beautiful roads and houses and cars down here, and the trees, the beautiful trees in the mountains up here in the distance, the Alps up here, some snow caps up there. And if I zoom out a little bit, we can see there's another house over here, a beautiful home over here. On the right-hand side, we'll try to put a little bit of that in too. So, and then there's another smaller house down here, which gives us some scale. So when we see this house down here, this size, which is very small, we'll kind of get the feeling of depth in the painting, a really nice three-dimensional quality to the painting. And of course, these small cars here in the distance on the road. So if we can get a few of these small details, we will really be able to bring more three-dimensional quality into this painting. But what I'll do is I'll zoom in first on the structure, but I'll remember to leave. So the first thing to do, before we get to do our drawing and starting our church drawing here, the drawing of the church and the structure, let's make sure we lightly sketch, maybe just to make sure we situate our church on the picture frame perfectly so that we still can fit in this other house over here with the orange roof. That looks really beautiful, a nice touch of color, orange roof over here. So let's try to get all this laid out correctly first. And the way we do it is we just do a preliminary sketch, a very, very light sketch. And I'll try to kind of like break my picture down and say, well, where is the top of the roof? Maybe we could start there. And the top of this conical roof is about halfway. And then how about this way, across the picture this way? That's a little bit left, the point of the lower roof here, the main roof of the church. It's a little bit left of center of the picture, photograph. So it's a little bit over to this left, and the point of this roof is about halfway. So let's try to do this on the paper and say, all right, let's get this first halfway, about halfway on the paper. Looks good. About there. We could put our finger here like so and then say, okay, that's about halfway. And then we'll just make a super light mark like that. That's halfway, so that's going to be the point of our roof around this line here on this level here. Then we're going to look over here and say, oh, we said it was a little left of center. So that's center, a little left of center. So if this is about center of our paper, you can always measure it too. If you have trouble seeing equal distances and things like this, I've just been measuring and looking at things a lot over my entire life, so it comes a little bit quicker for me. So there's no need to feel inadequate if you have to break out a ruler and measure it once in a while. So you could take this and say, all right, I need to go halfway on this. This is 8 inches, so 4 inches is halfway. And then I need to go a little bit this way, so not a little bit left of center. Center is 4 inches here. So the top of that roof, if that's center, it's over just about this much. So we'll do that. So that's our point of the conical roof here. So we have that. And then we can lightly sketch in that roof. Just maybe we get a very light sketch we're going to just try to get everything in place here so that and then we have the tower here. And that's like down this way here. So there's quite a bit of roof here before we see the tower going vertical this way. And this part of the tower where it starts to, there's a roof that starts up here. So this roof up here starts about the same level as the peak. So that would be about here. So we're just getting a couple small waypoints for ourselves. And then this other feature down here, which is a small band of metal roofing, it looks like, is right at the same level of the roof there. And there's another bit of roof here. And so what I'm trying to do is just, since I'm here doing this, I might as well kind of get some things in here. And then this goes back at a slight angle like this. This stays about straight. This stays about level, maybe back a tiny bit on an angle that way. And these run straight down. And these are at a little bit of an angle, I think, these walls on this tower in front of the church here. Bell tower, maybe. And then we have from the edge of the roof down to the ground is about this, maybe perhaps the same distance from the peak, the very, very point of the top of the roof. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, it's about equal distance. So if I take my pencil and make a mark with my hand like that, and I go down like this, that's where it is, about like that. So That's going to be the bottom of the... All right, so essentially this is like, this almost looks like bricks stacked on one on top of one another. So I'm almost seeing this as like a brick or like a tissue box. It's like a rectangle basically. So that helps a lot. I think if when you're drawing, you hear a lot of artists say this, usually the top pro artists will always say try to think of things as like things you recognize, but don't try to focus in and think this is like a church structure that's part of the church, and you're trying to think of it in your mind. Like if you can see this as something more simple, like this is a rectangle, could look like a tissue box or a brick. So I'm seeing it like a brick or a tissue box here. And that helps me to just kind of simplify it in my mind. What is it shaped like? And there's another brick or tissue box on top of this first tissue box here, or a brick, or it could be trying to think of some other things that are square like this. It could be like an eraser, a square like a rectangular eraser. So whatever you would think of that this reminds you of, you just do it that way. Makes it a little more simple. And then up here, there's a more ornate roof area here. But let's kind of, I want to take a break mentally here and start working my way over this way. I wanted to make sure I fit everything in the picture frame. So this roof over here is like that. And then there's like a parking lot over here. There's cars. I don't think I'll do those. That's kind of very, very small. Probably would be good. This would have been a better painting to do on a larger sheet of paper to get more detail in. But we're not going to worry about that now. Let's just keep working. And then over here we have some grass and some trees over here and bushes. And then another larger tree up here. And this larger tree over here goes up about to the top of this here. So we have a tree up that way. If it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Try to get it pretty close. And then where is this roof? I like this orange roof here. This looks really good. It's probably clay tile roof on this house over here. It looks like a home. And it's about a third of the way up on this roof here. So if we go a third of the way up on this roof, about a third is there, a third there, and then it's about a third there. So then we come across, and that starts a little bit in from the tree shape there. And then we'll make that roof shape like that. And then the other roof comes up over here and goes like this. And then there's some windows on this house here. And then there's more trees and bushes over here. And this roof goes off like this into the distance like that. And there's more trees up here. So this is the focal point over here, the church. So we won't go too much detail on this over here. We'll paint some trees and things. But I just wanted to make sure I get this all in the picture, that what I wanted in the picture. And then we go over here like this, and then we have the grass over here. And then there's a staircase over here. That's about right there. The wall starts here. So there's a wall that comes down like this. Pretty steep wall like that. A steep angle for that wall. Like that. And that's actually the cap of the wall, and then there's the actual wall itself, the vertical wall. So there's just different components to these things I'm drawing here, but you can kind of see there's a cap on top of the wall, and then that white wall, that's the vertical wall that is by the steps. And then we have some steps here, so we're just going to put those in, and then there's a platform that goes in like this. And more steps. Okay, so I'm going to leave those steps at this point like that. There is a tree over here too. Lucky for me, because I'm kind of having it's too much detail with these steps over here. I just think if we see a little bit of the steps, great. But then let's use this to our advantage. Let's say, well, there is a tree here. You can see some trees along this other side of the stairs over here, so that's great. We'll add some of that just to kind of camouflage those stairs so we don't have to work too hard. And then this is pretty good. It's coming along nicely. We have some bushes over here on the side of the hill. And then there's a tree right over here, like this in front. So that's good. And then there's a tree over here. Like that. Like so. So once we start getting out into these other areas, we notice the smaller house over here. We notice a road like this coming around this way. Kind of goes out of off the page over there, and then it's over here. So we like to get that road in. Let's get in this small house over here. It's in the far distance, about at the same height as this top section here where the roof is. It's like a small band over here on this tower, church tower. And then over this way we have the couple of windows. Dark shadow there, goes back. Like that. All right, so that's good. We have the house in there. And then there's some more trees over here. I'm not going to get too worried about that. Too many details. So let's take a break. We've done a lot of work so far. I'll just try to maybe just get a few more lines in there for some of these bushes, and I think this is fine. Let's take a break now because we've done a lot of work here with the sketch. Make it more simple for yourself if you have to. You can maybe, I'm trying to think if there's a way to make this more simple. It is a little bit of a challenging thing to draw, the church here, because there's a lot of angles and things. So we could always, if we wanted to, make some of the church, we could always turn the church facing us with the tower straight without the angle on that tower there. So that's some things you can do creatively. You'd have to work on a piece of separate paper, maybe like a piece of printer paper, and maybe try to visualize and draw the church. If you want to get a more simple angle on it, like a two-dimensional angle, and you're not so interested in maybe making so many different angles and things like that with this, you can always do it that way. You can spin it around. You might be able to look this up online on Google Earth or something. Sometimes on the internet you can find structures like this, this exact structure, perhaps even this church, on Google Earth, and you can maybe take Google Earth and spin it around the actual map on Google Earth and find a different angle you can create that'll look good. If you kind of want to maybe have a go around or a workaround for doing as many angles as we're doing here. So, those are some options you have when you're actually creating paintings and drawings and things like that. You don't always have to go the extreme difficult route and have to do all of these type of details with angles and things like this. You can, do a kind of like a workaround and find maybe another way to do it, or visualize it in your mind and try to see how it would look if you turned this building this way. So if you took this and turned it this way, you'd have the same basic shape of the roof like this, except this would be straight facing us like this, so you wouldn't have this angle over here. This would disappear and go away, and then this would be facing us. So you'd have this wall that's in shadow facing us straight, and you wouldn't have this angle over here. But everything would stay the same. The shape of the top of the tower would stay the same, and it would just change slightly over here on this roof section and maybe a little bit over here. But again, you can be as creative as you want, or you can just go ahead and keep tackling this like we're doing here. And I'll do a few more things. Let's do one more angle here. So this is almost a straight angle on the roof there, like that, and then it kind of turns out like this. So the roof kind of has a bit of an angle like this, and then it angles out like that. Kind of like a hat maybe with a brim. So it's kind of got a brim around the bottom section here of the roof like that. And then, okay, let's take a break. We've been working about a half an hour, almost 20 minutes. 20 minutes we've been working on this drawing. It's a lot of details in here, so I'm going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll work on the windows on the church here. We'll do the windows. We'll do the top of the tower, the spire up top, and the top section, that globe on top there. And I think we'll have just a little bit of background to do, the mountains, the Alps back here. So we're doing this beautiful German church here in Bavaria along the Alps. It's a great painting to do, a great fun time drawing, lots of details. We can take our time, take as much time as you need to draw something like this. And you might be able to work from my finished painting at the end of the video, or you can also maybe work from the at the end of the video or the beginning of the video. I show the painting, the finished painting, so you'll see that as well. So you might be able to draw. It might be easier to draw from that, or I'm not sure if you'll have an easier time drawing from my pencil drawing here, but I think it's coming along okay so far. And then once we get painting, it'll kind of smooth out a little bit. We won't have as much headaches when we start painting. And always remember, pencil sketches and drawings always look awkward. So when you're in the middle of doing your pencil drawing, just go for it. Keep working. They always look awkward. I don't know why it is, but when we do pencil drawings in watercolor like this, they always seem to look a little off or a little awkward, or the angles look a little funny. But once you start going in and painting and working with the paint, it tends to look much better, and it doesn't look as awkward for some reason. I don't know why that is, but that's just one of the things about drawing in pencil before you paint. The pencil drawings do tend to sometimes look a little awkward, looking like they're not correct or their angles are off and things like that. Don't worry about it. Most times you're going to be pretty close with what you're drawing. It's just your mind is seeing it in a different way, which I can't explain. Maybe some of you don't have that issue, but usually when I'm looking at pencil drawings on things like this, like architecture and more complex drawings, I do tend to see it differently. I tend to think there's more problems with it, but then when I get to the painting and I start painting everything, it seems to be okay and look fine. So that's just a tidbit of information that I kind of find will perhaps help you when you're doing your drawings, not to get too worried and go in with the eraser and erase a lot. Try to just draw it, get it done. Just keep moving forward. If there's a couple awkward angles, probably chances are it's okay, but it might look a little funny. So don't get hung up on it. Just keep working on through. And let's take a break and we'll be right back. All right, so we just took a quick break, of course, just to relax a second or two, and we're going to get back into our drawing here. The thing I wanted to kind kind of emphasize before I continue to finish the drawing, we're kind of have most of it completed. We just have to finish the top of by the spire on the church steeple here and tower, and a couple of little small details like the road and the mountains and some of the trees in the distance here. But we're not going to get into terribly immense detail in these other areas. This is the main focal point, the church. So we kind of have that set as our goal to get really the church is the main focal point, and that's where most of our detail. We're going to pack all of our details in this area, and then we're going to just do some kind of silhouetting through the rest of the painting. I think that'll look really good. So that's our game plan. Now the thing is, some of you might be newer to watercolor, or you might sometimes you're not that keen on doing really complex drawings with architecture and things like that. Obviously, this is probably one of the most challenging things you'll have to deal with when you're drawing in watercolor, is like a structure like this, like a church with all kinds of shapes. And basically, these are basic shapes and things, and we talked about that in the beginning or a little while ago in the video. You know, how you can kind of see things as like a ball, like a couple tissue boxes stacked one on top of the other for the tower here, and this is like a hat, maybe like a hat with a brim around it for the roof. So you can kind of think of those concepts in your mind when you're setting out to draw these features of this architecture. Helps a lot to do that. And but also too, sometimes if you're still working on your drawing skills and still working with learning some things about perspective, let's say, or practicing. So usually practicing is the antidote to any situation. So I really learned to draw mostly from just keep on drawing, just drawing, every day, 15, 20 minutes every day, constantly. And I was able to get a little more better feel for three-dimensional qualities of structures and things like that, and any kind of like subject matter. You can also pick up books on that talk about three-dimensional qualities in drawings, perspective. So you can learn about line perspective. They call it line perspective, point perspective, 2-point, 1-point, 3-point perspective. There's all kinds of interesting things on perspective. My route was those books were too confusing for me, so I just wound up just keep drawing and drawing and drawing until I sort of get the hang of it. That's my approach. And we were going to say here, just for a quick note, you can take this and kind of spin it around in your mind so that you have more or less the structure like this. And then you can take this roof maybe like this, and then maybe you have a couple walls like this. So you can simplify this scene, turn it into a two-dimensional scene like this. And then over here you have the door over here, and then the window up here. So you can turn this and kind of spin it around, and there might be another bit of roof over here like this. You could add that, just be creative maybe, and think to yourself, yeah, there's probably another bit of roof over here and some wall, maybe another window over here and another one here. And there you have it. And then you can make the stairs maybe like this. Just a little bit of stairs, no need to add too much. We're just going to vignette all these sections over here and up here. We will add a little bit of mountains in the background here, but just lightly, just to kind of indicate it. But that's how we can kind of work with what we have here and even make it more simple for ourselves instead of trying to get this complicated three-dimensional structure. We can maybe in our minds just say, well, let's spin it around and make it kind of two-dimensional, and we'll get just as beautiful a painting. So when you do your painting, you can do this, kind of see it two-dimensional versus three, but then all the rest of it stays the same. You're going to have, maybe that roof's going to still be up there with the house, and you're still going to have a road going up here like this. That's kind of simple, just like a little, almost like an arm with an elbow. So like an arm up here with an elbow and an arm going this way. That's kind of the road, a little more of a round quality to it. But these are all things, you're still going to do this over here, this road over here, and then the small house over here, like that. So, but this is a little more simple. So if you want to kind of have this solution, that's fine. I maybe should have it. I'm going to actually show this in the very beginning of the video so everyone can notice, kind of fast forward to this section right here to avoid having to go through all of this if you don't really want to get involved with too much of the architecture and all the three-dimensional lines and everything like that. So we'll continue here, and I think I'm right here. And this kind of goes up like that. It's got more of a squarish edge there, like so. And this ball is quite large on top of this section. So maybe I do a super light line like this first. And I think to myself, does that look about right? How does that look? Yeah, I would say it's good. Here's the very, very edges of the roof eaves on this top section of the roof. And I noticed that the bowl on top, this sphere on top of this roof, is not quite as wide as the bottom edges of the roof where the fascia is. So this is like so. This does not quite go out to there, and we can see we're right on target here. And then we have this here like that, and then we're going to have the conical roof up here. And this pretty much has a good swale in it, like so. So you can kind of get your lines first like that. I'll get an eraser. Sometimes we can use an eraser. You kind of get some free-flowing lines going, and then you just gently lift up so that you can develop a shape like that. Okay, and then this goes up a little bit higher like that. Then there's a ball on the top like so. All right, we have it. And there's some lines on this here like so. There's a dark shadow under here. And then a dark shadow coming across here. So we're gonna notice that the light's coming from up here. So that's always another thing we like to always keep in mind is where's the light coming from? And the light is high up in the sky, noontime. The shadows are really not that long. The shadows are quite small under all of the objects that we're seeing here in this photograph, which means the sunlight in the sun is actually pretty much noontime up overhead, and it's sort of over here on the right side coming down this way across the picture. So the sun is somewhere almost straight up overhead and coming from this angle a little bit. So the shadows are going a little bit this way. You can kind of see that shadow going across here. I know this is kind of small, this photograph here, but there's only so much I can put in one picture frame here. So I apologize for if I don't have as good software programs to get some of this stuff crammed in here. But that's what we have basically is the sun coming from the up top coming this way. And there's shadows coming across. So now's a good time as any to start looking at the shadowing. And the shadowing here comes across there on a 45-degree angle. And the same thing here comes across here on a 45-degree angle, like that. And then we have them under the eaves over here, where there's some rooftop sections there. And this I want to keep this neat over here, this section. And I have some small paintbrushes ready to go because you can see we have a lot of detail here and we're not working in a huge piece of paper here, a large watercolor sheet. We're working in like a 8x10 maybe. Let me see here what we have. This is, 8x10 or 11. 8x10. So an 8x10, and we're trying to put in a lot of information into a small area, so that means small paintbrushes for this painting for the most part. All through these areas here where the structure is and the details here. And so we have the roof over here. Good. We have the road over here, that's good. And then let's try to keep pretty disciplined and get things like we see it in the photograph. Much better to do it that way. And the reason I say that is because everything relates to one another in the pictures when we're drawing from photographs. So the more accurate we keep staying to our photograph, the more accurate we can keep it. If we start to like just improv too much, then all of a sudden things aren't going to line up correctly and match up where we need it. So that's why I would say try to keep it pretty accurate anyway. And then for the most part in this area where your structure is and some of these things that line up with like the roads here and things like that. And then we have trees back here, like over here. And then there's even a bit of road that comes over here, around that way. And then there's even a far distance here, pretty much lines up with this part here. There is another house here. All right, so we're not going to get too much involved with this detail over here of this house way in the far distance, but we do want to have it in the picture because it definitely adds to the three-dimensional quality of everything. And then there's like hills and bushes along here where the sphere is on the top of the tower. And that happens to be another home over here, but I'm not going to really... I think this is good enough. I don't want to go too much with details here. And there's some more trees in the distance here. So I might just sort of do this. And then up here, we're going to flow down with the mountains. And again, we're going to try to vignette some of this. So the details might fade out a little bit around the edges, around the outer edges. All right, so we did a really good go of it here to get this drawing finished up. And I think we can paint now. And again, we're going to do this alla prima. Pretty much alla prima is you're going to paint everything starting with your darks first. And you're going to start in your focal point area, and then you just work your way out. And then once you get your darks pretty much settled in and pretty much onto the paper, then you'll start working in your middle tones, like your shadows and some of your lighter washes. So that's kind of the game plan for the alla prima. And I always mention, I have a brand new book out, and it's Watercolor, Methods for Success. What's great about this book is it covers all my methods and techniques in one compact booklet. It's a book, and it has all of my latest and greatest paintings. I cover everything, figure painting, portrait painting, how to draw portraits. I have a lot of fun, exciting things in the book, tons of paintings so you can work to your heart's content with these paintings. You can paint all of them once, twice, 3 times, do it all. Lighthouses, all kinds of interesting structures here so you can see. I really enjoy structures, lighthouses, buildings, pubs. We do everything here, country houses, cities by the ocean. I cover all of it. Alla prima painting. We cover flowers, tons of flowers in this book. Interesting studies on small subject matter, like a teapot or a wine bottle and a glass and exercises like this. I cover the glazing technique, doing a beautiful painting with the glazing technique, tons of water and wash everywhere. And then getting in the darks later. So that's kind of the opposite of the alla prima. So everything's in here, all my gear, my art gear, my colors, my palettes, my pens, my pencils, my art gear, everything here in one place. So I've got everything here listed out. So this is just really like all of my artwork and all of like the things that I do in one location. And that's, I'll leave the link in the description below. You could just, and if you somehow don't find the link in the description below, you just go on to Amazon and type in Chris Petri watercolor book or watercolor methods for success. You'll find it as long as you type in my name. And just a great, companion to any tutorials we're doing here, because it kind of just gives you the basics in the book of everything I'm doing here on my videos. So it'll really be a great counterpart to this video and tutorials on YouTube. All right, so let's take a quick break and we'll come right back. We'll start painting. We'll get our darks in, but we do have to do a few more things here. When we come back, we'll get in some of these features here, some of these arched windows in the tower, these large windows here, stained glass windows, a doorway here. We'll get some of these, maybe a couple trees we'll put in here along this section here. So just a couple indications. And, if we see any more shadow patterns, maybe we'll put those into. But I think we have pretty much the essence of everything we need right here. And that's all we need now. We're all really set. We just need a couple of the windows and doors here on this facade of this church. And there's a few windows up top here along the eaves of the roof. So let's get started in just a second. I just want to take a break and then we'll come right back. All right, so we're back and we're going to get started with finishing up the drawing. We just have a few, just one or two, maybe 3 or 4 different things we have to kind of finish up here on this drawing. But this is another way you can double check your drawing to make sure it's in proper scale so that nothing is out of proportion too much. There's an allowable amount of flexibility you have with drawing and with proportions, like whether they're going to match what you have here on your photograph to what's here on your paper. But the easy way to check it is I actually have chopsticks here. I always get Chinese. I really enjoy Chinese food and Japanese food, and they always give me extra chopsticks and extra food. So they're very generous with the proportions. So, and I always get extra chopsticks for free. And so if I hold up that to here and I just make a mark and say, well, how much is it from the top of the spire to the first eave of the first roof? It's about that much there. And then I can come down here and just make it a darker line so I kind of have that. And then I say, all right, how much is it to the bottom here? So it's a little more. So it's a little bit more here. So this bottom section, or these 2 sections here, which we said is kind of like 2 tissue boxes on top of one another, or 2 bricks, something like that. It's a little bit smaller than the tip of the spire to the top eave of this roof area. So you can kind of see that. So this is the new. So if I go over here and I just take the same idea, I flip it over this way and I say, all right, here's my spire up here. Here's my first roof eave from the bottom up this way. Really, this is not really a roof. This is, what's a small roof anyway. But let's just call this the top section and the bottom section. So if this is our top section, all we do is we slide this down like so, and we're about correct. We're a little bit larger on the bottom. So we actually got this pretty good working from our photograph and kind of checking our lines, and like we did how we did it in the beginning. You saw how we kind of, this top section here is pretty much even with the top of this roof. And then, this is about halfway. So these are kind of like 2 bricks stacked on top of one another. So all this is good. We're pretty much happy with the way this looks. This kind of goes back on an angle a little bit here, but we're pretty much good. We don't have to worry now. We're all set except for the windows. Let's get a few of those windows over here in, and we'll kind of just look at the architecture, and we're not going to make a huge deal of it. We're just going to make sure we have at least these dark spots here where there's some openings in the tower here. This could be a bell tower up here. And then we have another arched window here, which is, if we take this line across, it's a little lower than that. So again, I'm using what's already on my paper to establish new features that I'm trying to locate. Then I come over here and say, all right, this is this roof here. Then I have a window under there, but it has some space in between it. So let's do that. And then right below that, we have a roof and then a door. And that is our door there. So we have that. Then when we go over here, we notice that this window here is pretty much a touch underneath this line here, which is this roof where there's like a small roof area that kind of, I think, is protruding out. We'll make that shadow there like that. These are the shadows we're really going to have fun with when we paint. We're going to make sure we get all these really awesome shadows. It really creates a nice three-dimensional feel to the building when we're going to paint this. So here's this window over here, and it's a touch under this roof eave here, so we're going to do that, and it's in a little bit, so there we go. And then we notice that it's on an angle, the top of the window, a little bit like this. It's not quite level like this. It's a little bit, that little bit of a angle on that window really helps us. That maybe gives us a little more advantage to our drawing. And this bottom of the window is about a little bit above the top of the door. So we could move this up a little bit like that. And we're going to go right around here. There's another window up here. Like that. And then there's another window over here. And then there's another window over here. There's a shadow there first, and a shadow here, and then the window here, like that. And okay, I think that's pretty good. There's just a few more here, one there. These little bits are good to have. It's part of this design, so we should have them there. And then there's a bit of a feature here, an arched indentation over here. Not a window or a door or anything like that, but just a feature, architectural feature. And if I look at that closely, this line is a little bit this way. And this line's a little bit that way. So if you can kind of get those little bit of the angles, it's kind of good. All right. I will make a small car here and another small car here with the windscreen on the car there. And then I'm not going to do the cars by the building. I think I'm not great at cars really. So, let's see here. All right, that's good. All right, let's take a quick break one more time. I'm going to find my small brushes that I can find pointy brushes to get these really fine details started, because that's what we're going to do next. We're going to get these smaller, dark details in, and we talked about we're doing the alla prima method here, which is let's start with the darks first. Really important. We'll start with the darks first on this structure, and then as we get these darker darks in here, which is quite a few, especially up here at the top of the tower, the spire and the sphere, and the roofing up here is very dark. And then the windows and some of the roofing and trim around is kind of dark. So we're going to get all those darks in. Once we get those in, then we'll start working on some medium tones like the roof and some of the grass and sidewalks and roadway. And then we'll figure the rest out. All right, let's get one more thing in here as I notice. There is a small bit of roof here. And then a shadow. Maybe something we could have left out. Maybe we'll erase this. Maybe we don't want to put that in there. Maybe that is kind of odd and it doesn't look all the greatest. I think I'm going to do that actually. I'm looking at this and I don't think we're going to get a lot of excitement out of this smaller roof projecting out of this larger roof. You see how there's a small dormer sticking out from that roof there? I think that for our purposes, this is where we can, as an artist, you're the artist, you can take things out of your painting if you don't think they're going to look good. You can already make a decision with yourself and say, you know what, I don't think that's going to look that great in this painting. I'll just take it out. It doesn't matter. Same thing with other things around your painting. You might think to yourself, you know what, I don't think all this green, grass, and trees, it's maybe too much for this painting. This painting needs to be painted slowly, and let's get the main structure, which is our focal point, the church. Let's get that completed first. Then we'll slowly add in some greens and some blue sky and some mountains, but let's do it real slowly and carefully and make this more of a vignette style painting, which is not painting everything in solid like a photograph, but maybe just capturing some sparkles of detail that are going on in this vista, this view we have. So let's get started up in just a second. I'm going to find my brushes I need and then put some water in here and we'll be good. All right, we are going to get started with the painting. We're going to start with our darks as we said. So we'll mix up some darks here. I'll start out with some cerulean blue here. And some burnt sienna. Maybe some raw umber over here. And I'll start even with some French ultramarine blue. And I like to, let's mix up some of the colors here. Some cadmium yellow. And some cobalt blue, why not? Let's just use lots of variation of colors probably. That is going to look the best. This is a pretty dark red. So we'll keep some things dark too. We want to keep some of these really dark shadows in there. This is a really small brush. I meant to say this is a number 4 Da Vinci Maestro, or actually Da Vinci travel brush. It's got the plastic handle, and it screws and unscrews, so you can put it away like this, rinse it off, clean it off. You can put it in here, throw it in your pocket, your purse, your backpack, duffel bag, pockets, pants pockets, whatever, and then when you're done, arrive home or to your studio, and you just take it back out again, put it back together again, and let it air dry out, and you're ready for another excursion if you're going to go out and do some painting outdoors. It's a number 4. 1503 Germany is the actual model number or the part number. So as you can see, really what I'm doing is I'm making small spots of dark, really, really dark color. as you can see, that's how it really looks on the photograph here. Those are the darkest darks on the church that we're doing now. So we start off with the darks in our painting when we're doing alla prima. And I've mixed plenty of mixtures of colors to get my first bits of paint on here. Now this looks just like cerulean blue. In the photograph, it's not extremely dark over here. This one window, there's a lot of bright sunlight on that window over here on the far right, so I made that more or less cerulean blue. Where these over here are quite a bit darker, so that's why I went with darker tonal values. And that door looks like a very much wood color, maybe some raw umber, some raw sienna. A little bit of a shadow under there, like that. And once this all dries, then we can go over with some washes for our shadows. And then these are really, really dark. So that could be like French ultramarine blue, even some burnt umber in there. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, cobalt blue, any really dark. As long as you have some French ultramarine blue and burnt umber in there, that's going to be super dark, and that's what we need for these two windows down here on the bottom of the tower section of the church. And then there's just a tiny little bit of shadowing here, like that. And under there. All right, so we are moving right along here. Okay, so that's quite a bit of darks there. We could have started up here even, but I think we're okay starting down here and getting our, we'll do some, this would be olive green, sap green maybe. Sap green might be a little better. For some of the grass colors, we'll use cadmium lemon yellow and sap green. And right away, let's start tying that into the ground area, like that. A little splash there. And then there's a bit of a dark, shadowy green, blue, burnt sienna blue, cobalt blue maybe, green. Like that. Okay, let's leave that as it is. And then we can always go back in and add some shadowing if we have to, or whatever we need to do over here. But we could do a little finger painting here maybe. And if we go over the building a little bit, we just lift it up with a tissue. If you tend to have a spot that gets out of control, no problem. Straight yellow there maybe, cadmium lemon yellow. All right, so we're kind of sculpting. We're painting a negative shape painting. You hear this often. Negative shape painting, basically, it's when you paint around an object appears. So we've painted these green shrubs and trees on the back side of this church tower. And as we paint that section of bushes and trees there, we've actually painted and created the edge of this tower here. So that works wonderfully. And then we're going to keep working our darks. So I would say maybe we'll work up here on the top. We'll do the sphere and the conical top. So that's going to be a little bit of verdian green for that top section, with some of that green mixed in there and maybe a touch of burnt umber just to gray it down a little bit. And it's kind of light. Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue in there too. It's kind of a light green, so we don't want to go too dark. So let's do that. So we'll start up over here. And I'll just carefully incense. And if you go over a spot, no problem. You take your tissue, you fold it up into a little point, and then you just lift up a little bit. But that's no problem anyway, because look what we have right next to that. We have more trees and things over here like that. So it doesn't really matter. And then we splash. And then there's dark bits there. Some dark green, sap green with some burnt umber, burnt sienna. So burnt sienna, burnt umber, sap green, kind of a dark green, maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue in there too. And we could sort of get a little bit of dark in there like that. And hopefully it doesn't infiltrate too much. If it does, let's blot it up a little bit. We'll go in later with that maybe. We'd like to really get that spire of that top roof section just right. But there is a bit of dark there like that. And then now under here is a dark shadow that way. So we have that dark shadow there. And again, if you have any problems with the shadows, no worries, just keep going. And I'm carefully following the shadow patterns on this photograph, and I can kind of see there's some cool, interesting colors there. Like that. And then mix up a little bit of all that, and let's go around like this and see how that looks. Still needs some dark over here. It's kind of dark there. Definitely darker there, so we need more French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Like that. And it's also there too. So that kind of is a shadow like this that goes around the bottom like that. And then it softens out here. That looks good. And then we kind of have a line going across here. It's very dark there. And then this here is a very fine line, like that. And then once this is sort of dry here, we rinse off the brush, take off even more water, take a tissue, dry off your brush even a little more, and try to soften this up. Dry off as much water as possible off the brush and just try to see if you can get a light wash like that. And it's a little bit green there. And if you have to lift up a little bit like that, that might work better. And that's kind of light too. And I'll go with just a touch of shadow on this side over here. And we said the sunlight is coming from up here, like this. Pretty much up high in the sky. And we'll get some more sap green, burnt sienna. And again, I'm going to try to vignette this a little bit. There is some bushes and things up here and trees over here in the picture, so I will leave room for that. And I'm going to keep myself on course here. Sap green. What I think is good is some areas you're doing a lot of detail, like here on the top of the spire of the church and the roof, the top sections of the roof of the church. And then other areas like this, these are just kind of quiet areas where there's not much detail going on, so you don't have to worry about capturing too much detail on these sections here. The roof is kind of seems like a little bit of a purplish color, purplish gray, so maybe we can use maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson. Some blue, and then maybe a little bit of raw umber. It's pretty light though. So I'm keeping this light. And we're coming up on a break soon. We've done quite a bit of painting already. It doesn't seem like maybe a lot when we're looking at the overall picture, but so I'll add more water to it so I get a lighter tone for this over here. There's more light on this side of the roof. That's where the light is kind of hitting the roof this way, like that. So this is lighter, this is darker, this section, and then this section here is even a little darker yet. So that's something that we can definitely see. And believe it or not, we can touch things up later with a little bit of white, titanium white paint, or some darks. We can pack some darks around some areas of the roof to make it, we could do that right now. Let's go here, and we could even go in with some burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And maybe just do a little bit of dark there. Just enough to kind of accentuate that angle there. And if you can't get it to work, lift it up and we'll go back to it later. That's all. This tissue can really help you a lot. You bowl it up. You just have to make sure you change your tissue out often, because if you have too much paint on it and you keep tapping in on, especially on maybe like on a section of paper, if you have too much paint on this, it could blotch down onto your paper. So you change your tissue every once in a while so that you don't have too much paint building up on your tissue you're working with to blot up a little bit here and there, but definitely does help quite a bit if you can get a little bit of the blotting with your tissue when you're having an issue where you're trying to work on something and it's just the paper's too damp and you can't have it work correctly to get your wash in there. So that's when you let that section go. That's a perfect time for a break right now. So we're taking a break. And I guess the fun thing of this painting is we're kind of just going slow. That's the fun thing about this. Go slow. You take your time. You're doing little bits of darks here and there. Once you get that drawing in like we did, you take your time as long as you need to get your drawing in. And we always talk about you can make things more simple and not do it, in a very sophisticated manner as this with all the angles and things, three-dimensional. This is a difficult thing to draw. This is probably challenging for even all professional artists would agree. If you told them to draw this, all professional artists, the top people would say, oh yeah, that's not an easy drawing. It's going to take some time to work out the angles and things like that. So don't be discouraged at all if you're trying to draw this and it's not coming out great. Again, at the beginning of the video, we'll talk about it. And even just a while ago in the video, I talked about you can change things around and maybe get a different angle on it so that it's not as difficult to do the drawing of this. Okay, so never worry about that. But make sure you just get through your pencil drawing, get it done. And then we're having the fun part. This is just putting in these this is the alla prima method. We're doing everything at one time, having fun, getting in our darks first. Look how easy that is. You just look at this and go, look at all those spots of darks. Easy enough. We just go in as we went here and got all our darks in. Then we went up here. We start off in an easier area, and then we start working up here. It's a little more difficult, maybe, painting this. But we got it done. We got the darks and the shadows on this side. Light's coming from this side this way. Up high in the sky, the sun's straight overhead, noon. And you can kind of see, now we've got a lot of good darks on here. We're really getting there. We don't have to do a ton more on this painting. You'll actually see we're going to vignette it like we were talking about in the beginning. And of course, you saw the finished painting in the beginning of the video. So never worry. Go slow. We're going slow here. Lots of darks, slow. Get those in. Then you work up here. You get a little bit of trees. Ideas of trees, do a little splashing to get some tree looking things going on. And we'll continue to do everything at one time. We'll work all of the colors, all of the things going on at one time. But again, our main goal now is still let's get those darks in. Let's keep working the darks. And that's how we do it. We figure out the darks first. Let's get them all in. We still can see more. Over here, I see some darks over here in small quantities. I see a dark up here. That one car on the road there, that's a dark. Another windscreen up there on that one vehicle. There is some darks too in some of the trees and different areas in the background, but I don't know if we're going to do too much in these background areas. I think we're going to leave it pretty much right here is going to be the focal point. The church, these houses over here, this one house down here, that'll be a little focal point for us, and I think that's about good. And maybe a few cars up here on this road. And the steps too, we're going to do a little bit of the steps there and some trees and bushes, but you'll see how this is not going to be a tremendously difficult painting to paint. The hardest part was drawing this. Once you get the drawing done, then it's kind of fun. So we'll continue to get the paint on the paper here. Let's take a quick break, and I'll be right back. And I always mention, if you really like my videos, please don't be shy. Hit that subscribe button on the right-hand side below. It doesn't obligate you for anything at all. There won't be any emails or phone calls or text messages, anything like that. That's not how subscribe works. Subscribe, all it does is just make sure you stay in touch with me so you won't lose me in case you forget my name or you forget, you come back a month later to find me and you're looking all around and you can't find my channel anymore because you just forgot my name. You look in your search and you can't find it in your search menus and whatever on YouTube. YouTube, once you subscribe, all YouTube will do is save you, so you'll know exactly where to. You could just type in go to your subscribers part of your channel and you'll find me there, or you'll see my videos coming in each week as we make new videos. And this way you can just join right along with us, keep painting with us, keep working with me. And here, all of us together, we're having a great time. We're learning watercolor. And again, it's just the basics over and over, the fundamentals, the methods of watercolor over and over and over again. And the more you're just joining along here on YouTube with us all, painting and drawing, you're going to get it. And before you know it, you're going to be doing some wonderfully beautiful paintings. And I'm sure many of you are already doing some great work. Some of you, you're just starting out. You're going through some of your hard times, trying to figure things out. It's not easy. Watercolor does take quite a bit of time to get the hang of. So if you're just sticking with this each week, you will get the hang of it no matter what. Just a matter of hanging in there and keep doing it. All right, so be right back. All right, so we're continuing on here. I've been working with this one brush. I just wanted to mention that. So far in this painting, we've kept it real simple. We're just basically the alla prima method. Once our drawing is done, we're going in, we're getting in all of our darks. So you can see that all of the darks that we can kind of identify here on this structure, which is this beautiful church in Germany, in Bavaria. We have the darks. We've noticed at the top of the tower on this church, there's some basic shapes, a globe, a sphere, obviously a conical rooftop metal roof there, and then another section of metal roof on top of that. That's sort of looks like almost like a helmet or a hat of a sort, maybe like a square hat or a round brim hat. And then you have your two bricks standing one on top of the other, or it could be two tissue boxes, however you want to kind of see it to simplify in your mind. So we try to simplify things in our mind, what things are looking like. This roof here, we said it kind of looks like a hat. So again, everything is to kind of simplify things, make things easier for ourselves as artists. You're the artist. You have to try to find ways to make things simple for yourself so that you don't get overwhelmed with too much information. Because if you look at a photograph like this and you say, I got to draw and paint this, and then you start to say to yourself, there's just so much information there, and where do I begin? Again, thinking in your mind, simple shapes of things, and then how can we make it more simple? Kind of delete out things that might not be, are not going to look so great in a watercolor painting. Maybe sometimes in a watercolor painting, it's best to leave out all of that green trees and fields, and that can kind of look overwhelming, that green color in the whole scheme of the colors of this painting. So you're going to see how I'm going to try to minimize all of those green trees, and it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, it looks great if we're standing there looking at this, or if we're there, or if we're looking at a photograph. But when it comes to artwork, we kind of have to change our approach a little bit and think of what's going to look better from an artistic standpoint. So I'm hoping we're kind of having a good time with all of this and synthesizing all these ideas into this painting, and let's keep going. So we're going to take this color we used for the rooftop, and we will use that color in the roadways here, because I can kind of see the roadways and the rooftop are similar in color. So we'll be able to reuse the purple, and we use purple and a little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of cerulean blue. I think that was our mixture there. So we're going to have that mixed up a little bit ahead of time. And I'm watching a water main broke outside my studio. I'm looking at the road, and there's floods of water coming down the roadway. I think it's safe, though. Everything's fine. It's just going downhill. I'm on a hill. Okay, so let's keep going here. So we have, let's see. I'm looking for darks again to try to identify the darks that I have. Let's come over here and let's get in some of these. And I'm just using the darks that I have already mixed up here. There's a bit of some darks here underneath this roof. And there's some windows. Then those darks get a little bit lighter here by the front area, and there's some greens. So we can just go right back into our palette with all of the things we've already mixed and kind of use that to help us get the picture looking good. And some of these details, so that's a little bit of a shadow line there. sap green, a little bit of cobalt blue over here maybe. We'll get some darks over here like that. And a little bit of the Viridian green for the roof. I can see that. Okay. And look at that. All right. So we have a good deal done now over here on this side. I think we're pretty good with that. Gives us the scale of things here already. Really nice dimensional, three-dimensional quality. The person that took this photograph is looking up high from like a mountaintop area above this area, looking kind of down on the picture like this. So we're seeing things from like a higher perspective looking down. And that's a helpful thing to know as we're painting along here. And let's see, we have some more darks. Let's keep working on our darks. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. That's our trio with darks. Usually we 3 windows here. Like that. Nothing too definite or exacting. 3 kind of square looking spots of color, darks, like that. Then we have a shadow running under here, looks pretty dark. And then I'd like to get some raw umber and some browns. I might blot up a little bit here. Okay, this is quite dark in here. I'll go with a touch of French ultramarine blue to get that darker. That looks good. Good. And then some lemony yellow for the tops of these trees here. And again, I'm thinking let's vignette things, not too much greens and And what I'm thinking too is we'll come back and do some of these sections with a larger brush. So we will use a larger brush and sort of do a little more painting where the trees and the grass and things are. All right, so we have this, and then I noticed that this wall, where these windows are, it's picking up mostly the colors of the green, the light. So this wall here is actually picking up all these green colors right here. So I'll just go right in there, and it's dry enough now. So these windows dried enough, as well as this roof area here, this gable end of this wall, have dried enough that I can go right in and do that. Carefully with just a damp brush for the most part, and not too much water to avoid reactivating all that darker paint. Then we have some orange and burnt sienna. For this section of the roof. And then we have some of that grayish color right across here like so. That looks good. So now we can kind of see we're working around the painting, getting our darks in first, and then we're actually going into and getting some middle tonal values, kind of getting in some of these bushes and trees and things like that to kind of tie things together. And let's continue on here. Looking for darks right now. So I'm looking for some dark colors, some dark tonal values, spots of darks here and there to see what I can kind of work with the darker tonal value ranges that we have to work with. So over here I do see up here there's a couple windows, a couple spots there where this distant house is. So I kind of get those in there carefully like that. And then we use some of this that could be for our that's for our rooftop. And we have some green here, so we'll use some green over the top here. Kind of we can shape that. And again, if anything gets out of control with shapes or anything like that or washes, lift up. So we have some I'm going to try to usually it's best to you kind of leave things to dry. That's the best really usually. Lift up and then let this dry and then come back like 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes later and do another kind of section. See, I tried to do this roof and I lost control of the wash a little bit and it kind of looked like a blob. So definitely want to come back and try to finish that later. So that's the best thing. Lift up the paint as best you can. Sometimes too you could even use, I'm going to change my water because my water is getting a little bit murky. So we'll put some fresh water. And then sometimes I'll dip in the tip of the tissue or a paper towel and then maybe just do a little like that. So I could kind of just blot that up like that. And then once that paper dries 100% right there, then we can go back in and put a house or something interesting. We will do that. We'll put the house back there with a roof on it. But right now it didn't work out good. It got kind of a little messy. And as you can see, you can gently, I'm using Fabriano Artistico paper. Great paper to use. You can do things like this, lift up some paint, scrub, kind of like gently lift off some paint, some wash, and then let it dry, and you come back and you paint over the top of it, and it'll be looking just great. No worries. That's Fabriano paper, excellent paper. So now I'm going to continue to find some more darks. I might get some of this purple, and I think we said a little bit of burnt sienna in that, a little bit of cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson I think we added in there. And then it's more of a little more red in there. Okay. And then there's the road comes around here. And it does kind of wrap through there. It kind of goes through there too. So it looks like it kind of goes around here. And then it comes around this way. And then we have this sidewalk over here. So I'm using all of this wash right here to like this, and then there's a little bit of green. So I'm trying to really work my middle tonal values now. But I'm still interested in finding some darks, but I want to keep going too and see if I can so the stairs over here. Have a bit of that color too. So we'll get some of that in. We're going to find some darks. There's some darks in those staircases here. And then if we work our way around over here, there's some of this road coming down here. So this is where I'm trying to go out of the picture there and come back in like that. And then I even noticed too that the quality of this color is really good for the shadowing on this building here. So I'll be a little extra careful and add a little bit of water to it, but I think this will work for this side of the building here. And what we'll do is we'll get this side of the building in shadow. Not complete shadow, but it is got more of a shadow color on this side. Then as we go over to this side, that's all white paper. We'll leave the white paper as it is. Then we'll start working in these shadows here. And then what we can do is we'll use some of that cerulean blue for our shadows. little bit of cobalt, maybe too, a little bit of cobalt blue. Like that. Then a little bit of gold color within that cerulean blue where the shadows are, so the shadows aren't always completely cool. So the shadows sometimes have warm and cool. They always have warm and cool colors. And always remember, things always dry lighter. So if you put a shadow in and it looks kind of dark, it's actually going to get lighter. And then I'm careful to and I'm just going to keep trying to mix this until I get it similar to what we had before. That's pretty close, I think. A little more blue. All right, so we're getting our shadows completed, and it looks pretty good. We have a little more trim to do around the gutters and the fascias and things around the roof edges. That's a shadow there. And we have this here. All right, we're slowly working our way through the painting. We're adding our shadows. I think this looks good. There might be a little bit of shadow along here. All right, so I think I'm going to take a quick break. When I take a break, it's always a benefit because then when I come back now in about 5 minutes, I'm going to stand back from everything and just kind of look at it and then look at my photograph and kind of look back and forth and see what strategically I can do as I'm starting to finish up the painting. Because you can see we've got a lot of things going on. Things are really going well. We got kind of like all the things we need, the fundamental basics of all we need here in the picture painted. All the darks we have in pretty much for the most part. There are some darks with the trees and things, but I'm going to be a little bit more slower and careful about trying to add in too much more with the colors of the trees and things. We'll use a larger brush in a little while to capture maybe a few large sections of maybe trees and grass and things like that, hillsides. But we also have to do this mountain back here. It's a purplish blue mountain, so we're going to try to indicate that in the painting, but not go incredibly detailed with that. We just want to be sparse with our final additions to this painting. We've already completed a lot. It's kind of interesting on its own right now, sort of vignetted. And let's just kind of finish it up real slow and carefully. We can always go in and do more, but once we go in and do too much, then we can't really remove anything, obviously, except for if we have a little issue, we can kind of rub things off or we'll do some things like that. We'll take a couple things off if we have a problem with a small section. But to try to paint something large in here, like a bunch of trees or a large mountain, and all of a sudden, if we don't think it looks good, we really can't do anything about it really at that point. It wouldn't be a good painting if we tried to remove something like a large section of mountain or a large section of tree. So I guess what I'm saying is let's just keep going slowly and carefully and adding more things to this, but really slowly, and think through what we're going to do and keep stepping back and looking at it too and saying, is that going to be enough for it to look good? So you'll be the judge, you're the artist, you're going to judge and look at this as we go now and finish up. And of course you can do a little more. You can add things if you want to do more than I do. That's fine. Everyone has their own tastes and their own thoughts on how much you should maybe add or leave out when you're doing your painting. So, I respect everyone's thoughts on this and your style of painting and how you do things. So I'm just going to kind of do this the way I feel I want to see it completed and done. And everyone can all do the same on your end. And I'm sure everyone's going to be happy once we're completed and we can step back and say it's a good painting, and we'll be back again in the next couple days or so to get started on another one. So let's take a break, and then we'll come back and sort of start finishing and winding things down. Okay, so let's start wrapping things up here. We have some work to do, but I think we're really almost there. So I think let's get some mountains up here in some of these bluey purplish mountains with some greens in there. We can leave this like this. This is okay because we have a large area here that we're going to work with color. So that just cancels that out with some cerulean blue. And then purple we need. So we're doing the mountains. Purplish blue. And then also some burnt umber over here for some darker parts of that mountain with some French ultramarine blue. So I think between the lighter blue and this darker blue, I think we have it. And then maybe even a little bit of green over here. So now we have three good mixtures. We have some sap green over here with a little bit of the leftover mix of purple and burnt sienna. That gives us some of the darker qualities there with the blue, a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Then over here we have more of the cerulean blue and some purple, maybe even a little bit of some of the more sap green with some alizarin crimson. And I think we will have this looking pretty good here. So I'm just getting some abstract quality of the mountains coming down this way. Those are a little bit of the darker spots. There is some more of that bluish purple. Like that. And then as we go over here, maybe we're just going to fade this like this with some water, like that. And Then we can even just blot that up a little bit. Again, we're going to try to vignette this a little bit. And then there is some more green over here. There's some more mountains and trees over here. So I'm going to try to work that into the mix here. And I kind of blend those two together like that. There's some bright yellow there. And so I did block in a large amount of green right here. And I will do this too. I'm going to add this. There's like a tree here. I'll mix up a little bit of a dark here. That might be another kind of a darker tree shape, which is, we can have a few of those. And I'm using the watercolor paper that's damp and wet is to my advantage here by adding in these bushes and trees. So that's some French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And then I can get even darker there like that. And the same here. A couple of spots of dark color there. And then just a couple splashes there, like that. Then maybe some lemony, that lemon yellow, cad lemon yellow here, bright. Sap green over here. And there's a couple like kind of bush shapes here. And some shadowy shapes there too. I'm running out of sap green here. We can use some olive green too. Olive green works good. Olive green is close to sap green. So what I do is I try to put some interesting details right around this here. So this is interesting, the house here. So I put the kind of the dark and interesting details here with the bushes and some splashing. Maybe a couple little upstrokes there with the fingernail. A couple of variety is good. If you can get some variety, that works good. And this looks pretty good. That's finished, I would say. That's plenty of details around this house. And then here we can start with some fresh water. Olive green, and then some of that cadmium lemon yellow. And again, some splashing just to get a little bit of details going here. All right, so we have plenty of interesting things going on here. And now's the point where we kind of don't want to get too much details and overwork this painting. So I'm going to be kind of sparse with what I'm doing here. Okay, so our mountains up here. We can come back to these mountains again. There might be some snow caps up here, a little bit, some snow on top of this section up here. And what we could do is kind of drag the brush across on the side like this for some indications for some snow. Over here, a little bit of purple maybe into that. This is more green up here. Okay, I think we have plenty of details now. How about some sky wash? cerulean blue always looks good for a sky wash. And we could do is this. We'll get some sky wash up here, but let's not go with too much detail in the sky. Better to just kind of okay, now with the you can get that feeling of snow on the mountaintops by just leaving the blue a little bit away from the top. And then some sections, and then down here we can just kind of flow that into the ground area, to the tops of the mountains. So the snow is more up here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is one more time I want to take a break and step back and look and see how it looks. And again, this is just a fun practice painting. It's a composition. Maybe we're out on location and we're pretending we're just here on location, on vacation, and we're doing some painting with our easels set up in front of this scene. And we're not really going for a finished painting. We're going for getting some good colors and ideas, and then we can bring this back to the studio and then work from the studio and do a larger painting, maybe like a 16 by 20 or 24 by 36. So we can do a really large version of this and really have lots of, interesting ideas when we bring this back to the studio. So that's kind of how a lot of artists do work. They do small sketches in the field like this, outdoors, on location, and then they bring these back to the studio, and then they use this, and they'll remember back and how much fun it was on vacation, and they were painting and doing this, or on a workshop or something, and you can bring this back to the studio and take all this information that we've created here, and then just work that into a larger painting, and that can really look good. So I think we're completed here. We have plenty of good things here. I could do a few more things, and I think I will. I'll come back because I did see a few more things right here on the painting that I want to do to really just make it a solid finished painting, and then we'll wrap things up. All right, so we'll be right back. Okay, let's get started again here. We're going to finish up our last bit of details for this painting. You'll notice I added a little bit of burnt sienna, a very, very light bit of wash of burnt sienna right there, to these lower rooftop areas that go around here. They're very small roofs. They're just small details that go around here, and then as well as the eaves of this rooftop of the main church area of the building. So I did that, and I also, I think I added a little bit of branches here to this tree, so I added some brown branches here, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I think that's all I added on while we were away. I think I didn't do anything else really. And then what I was going to do over here is kind of add, there's a little bit of a tree here that kind of goes like this. So I'll take some kind of brown mixture, brownish green mixture, and I'll put in the branches like that. I'm going to let that sit for now. Actually, maybe I can work on this. I'll use some of that sap green and cadmium lemon yellow and sort of splash on some leaves. It's a very, very, if you can see that, it's a very, very light It's a very, very light, sparsely. The tree has very little leaves on it. So I'll just do the same thing. Add a couple little leaf forms there and here and there. And that should be good. And then maybe a little shadow on the side over there. And then when I look, there's some shadows over here along the bottom of the building. So I'll maybe make some burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue for some shadowing along the bottom of the building. And I go here and there. And then over here, it doesn't seem to be as strong of a shadow. And there is a little more burnt sienna along the bottom of the building here. Looks like maybe some brickwork that might go around like this. That goes along the bottom of the building, like so. Just a little more detail to the building. And then we can always, we're going to maybe use a little bit of titanium white to fix up a few spots. More green, sap green here. I want to maybe just bring out this part of the roof here. And then I just add a little darker tone there with some sap green and a little bit of cadmium lemon yellow. And then once that dries, I'll add just a touch more. I sort of want to work it up in a layering approach. So I'll get a little more tone over here. That's sort of the same tone now. That looks good. And then maybe we do have some darker tones here that kind of describe this side of the roof. So maybe that's good enough. Maybe we don't have to really worry too much about this over here. I'll leave that go. I don't think I'll do anything more with that. And what else can we do? I'm going to leave this area more soft and kind of like just a light wash of paint on this side of the road because we do have this tree over here and we put a couple cars in here on the roadway. And maybe there's some kind of spots here. Looks like maybe some stone walls or something over here. So I'll put those in. And then we're going to definitely do some stairs over here. Let's do some very, very, very tiny bit of lines here. You have to have a really good, super sharp point for your brush. You can kind of see this brush has got a really super fine point. That's key to do these stair treads on these stairs here. So I'm not going to go. I think that's all I'll do for there. And a couple splashes. And then maybe a little bit of greenery there. Like that. And a little bit of shadowing under these bushes here. we go. We'll tie in some sections together there. If you see something that looks a little bit like awkward, you could try to tie it into another area. So I'm trying to tie this bottom of this bush in over here. Maybe I can do that. And you can see I'm using a lot of splashing technique here. Kind of works good for a painting like this because there's so many like large areas that are just sort of like grass and weeds and things, and it just doesn't seem like it would be a good idea to paint everything with a large brush and just color it, fill it all in with wash. I think leaving it like we did here with the vignette idea really does look good. And then it kind of keeps our focal point on the various interesting things that are going on. The church, the house over here, there's another house over here, cottage type thing. Then we have this beautiful mountaintop over here. So we look up over here a little bit. So we have lots of interesting things we can look at in this painting. And then we kind of leave the other areas relaxed and kind of not really too filled in, I guess, with colors or details or things like that. So the last thing I'll do is purple and... So that's purple and alizarin crimson, a little bit of burnt sienna, some cerulean blue, and then we'll make this wall here. The top of the wall goes here, like that. And of course there's a little bit of greenery alongside that wall, so and we'll add a little more of that burnt sienna. Dry off a little bit on the tissue or paper towel, just so we don't have too much. And we're just going to do the burnt sienna. And we'll just get a few more stairs up here, like that. I made this a little bit too dark, tonal value-wise. This should have been lighter. You can see how pretty light it is. It should have been a touch lighter, I think. But we live with, sometimes if you don't get everything 100% accurate, not a big deal. You could lighten it up maybe a little bit by adding some fresh, clean water to this and let it sit on there for a few minutes. Let's try it and see if it works. So let's try this over here too. So we're going to add fresh, clean water to an area perhaps we want to lighten up that we think we might have went a little bit too dark with on our wash earlier in the painting. Let's see if we can maybe do that. Let's see if we can lift up some paint. A lot of times, depending on what colors and we use, sometimes we can't lift up things. They don't really lighten up all that much, but we'll try anyway and see. Okay, it's been soaking for a few seconds or so. Maybe that's a good time to kind of just give it a try. So I take some paper towel, roll up some paper towel, and then I move it to the other side, and I press pretty good. And I think it did lighten up just a tiny bit. So that's good. It worked out pretty good. We lightened up that roadway there just a touch, which looks really good. And then over here we can maybe make this road a little more discernible. And now is the time where we might be starting to get too concerned about maybe too many details here. But I think now is the time where I'm kind of saying, yeah, we're good on, this is complete. This really looks good. Not too much more on the details, or otherwise we might start fussing around too much and ruin some sections of the painting. So we leave it like this. Seems to be just exciting to look at it quickly. The church, this house over here, this small cottage over here, up here, the sky wash and a little bit of the snowy mountains up here, the Alps. I think it looks fine. So let's leave it at this point here. Thanks again for coming by and painting with me. We're all together in this, working to get some really good results in our paintings. We stick with the fundamental rules, methods, and techniques in watercolor. Just using the two main techniques we like to use, the alla prima, which is this technique, which is just go in, paint the darks in first after we do our drawing, and then just keep working each of the washes out from there, going from darker to light. Or on other videos you'll see me talk about the glazing technique, which is we go all the light washes first and then we put the darker ones on last. So it's kind of like the reverse. The two techniques are kind of like work in reverse. Alla primas, your darks first, windows, doors, this section here, these darks here, some of these darks. And then last is the light washes all through here, and leaving the whites, of course. On certain sections you're going to leave white paper or lighter washes, very light tonal values. And I think this is fine. Sometimes I always like to maybe just do a little bit of a lemony yellow there to kind of make that feel like that's really a warm, sunny bit of light on there. Same over here. But that's really all I would do at this point. Is just add that, maybe that touch of lemon yellow to the facade a little bit, and that is it. All right, see you soon. Happy painting, everyone.